The arena smelled like ozone and blood. Mara Ellison stood in the center of the conclave's fighting pit, her boots planted in sand that had been stained by 100 years of combat. Around her, 40,000 aliens watched from tiered galleries, Vreth with their insect-compound eyes, Solon delegates wrapped in shimmering membrane cloaks, Draviki soldiers clicking their mandibles in what she had learned was anticipation. All of them waiting for the same thing. Her death. The conclave had made their terms perfectly clear. Humanity had trespassed in the outer corridors, established colonies without treaty, pushed their strange, stubborn civilization into space that the elder races considered theirs by inheritance. One champion would fight for each side. The loser's people would withdraw, permanently, from every claimed system. Humanity had sent Mara. She was not the tallest soldier in the Earth Defense Corps. Not the heaviest, not the most decorated. But Director Hale had said something to her before she boarded the transport that she kept turning over in her mind like a stone: you don't quit. You've never once quit. That's why I'm sending you. Across the sand, the conclave's champion descended from the entry gate. Kale Veyron. She had studied the Holos. She had known what to expect. But knowing and seeing were two different things entirely. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, his body built like something that evolution had specifically designed for war. His species, the Vanari, were the oldest martial culture in the known galaxy. 4 arms, each capable of independent combat function. Exoskeletal plating along his shoulders and forearms, deep cobalt blue, that served as natural armor. Eyes that saw in 17 spectrums simultaneously. In his upper 2 hands, he carried the Blade of Conclave, a weapon that had never once been defeated in 3 centuries of championship bouts. Kale Veyron had won 47 consecutive matches. Mara had exactly 2 combat knives, a reinforced alloy bracer on her left forearm, and a plan she hadn't told anyone about because it was, objectively, insane. The horn sounded. He crossed the distance between them in 4 strides. The crowd noise became a wall of sound. Mara didn't run. She stepped left, twisted under his first swing, and took the flat of his blade across her bracer instead of her shoulder. She felt the impact travel up through her teeth, but the bracer held. Good. First test passed. She let him drive her back. That was intentional. She needed to understand his rhythm, his pressure, the way he distributed weight between his lower body and the upper arms doing the weapon work. The Vanari fought with mathematical precision, every movement calculated, efficient, cold. Kale was better than the Holos suggested. His footwork was nearly silent for something his size. He struck again. She ducked, rolled, came up with a knife drawn and scored a shallow cut along the joint between 2 of his plating sections. He didn't react to pain the way humans did, no flinch, no recoil, but she caught the micro-adjustment in his stance. There. He favors the left side now. You are fast for a human, Kale said. His voice was low, resonant, carrying even over the crowd. He didn't sound contemptuous. He sounded curious. I'm fast for anything, Mara said. He almost smiled. She couldn't be sure. The next 3 minutes were the hardest of her life. He adapted to her. That was the terrifying thing. He wasn't just strong, he was smart, and he recalibrated constantly, sealing off the angles she tried to exploit, using his 4 arms to create defensive configurations she'd never trained against. Twice she nearly lost her knife. Once his blade opened a cut along her ribs that made her breathe sharp and shallow for 30 seconds. The crowd was growing restless. They had expected this to be over quickly. Mara needed them to keep underestimating her. She feigned stumbling, made it look like exhaustion was catching up, let her guard drop just slightly on the right. Kale moved exactly as she'd predicted. He committed to a finishing strike, blade angled down with the full force of 2 arms behind it. Mara did not dodge. She stepped into it. Her left forearm came up, not to block, but to intercept the flat of the blade at the precise stress point she'd calculated from material analysis the core engineers had run on conclave weapon alloy 3 weeks ago. Her bracer, lined with experimental fracture propagation compound that human metallurgists had been refining for a decade, connected with the blade at its narrowest cross-section. The blade of conclave, undefeated for 300 years, broke. The upper third spun away into the sand. The crowd went absolutely, completely, utterly silent. Kale Veyron stood motionless, staring at the shattered weapon in his hands. Mara's ribs screamed. Her arm felt like it had been hit by a transport. But she was still standing, and he was not. She stepped forward, pressed her remaining knife to the juncture below his jaw, the vulnerable spot the holos had shown, the gap in Vanari plating where a blade would reach something vital. "Yield," she said. He looked at the broken blade. He looked at her. Something moved behind those multispectrum eyes, not rage, not shame, but something she didn't have a name for yet. "I yield," Kale Veyron said. What happened next, no one had planned for. The concussive shock of the bracer impact had done something to Mara's arm. The fracture propagation compound worked both ways, it turned out, which the engineers had noted as a theoretical concern and she had noted as an acceptable risk. 2 bones, clean breaks. The adrenaline had held her upright through the yield declaration, through the moment the crowd noise returned as a roar she felt in her sternum. Then her legs decided they were done. She went down in the sand. Not dramatically, just a quiet folding, knees to the ground, and then she was sitting there holding her arm against her chest, breathing through the pain, listening to 40,000 aliens process what they had just witnessed. Kale Veyron knelt beside her. She looked up at him. "You don't have to do that," she said. "I know," he said. He didn't move. The conclave's medical staff arrived, small gray uniformed figures rushing across the sand with equipment she didn't recognize. But Kale stayed where he was, 4 arms loose at his sides, watching them work on her with an expression she was starting to translate as something like vigilance. "You knew the blade would break," he said. "I knew it could break," she said. "There's a difference. You accepted that risk. That's what the mission required." He was quiet for a moment. "Then, your people sent you here alone. They trusted me. Against me." Something shifted in his voice. 47 matches, Mara Ellison. "Do you understand what you have done?" She looked at the broken blade half still lying in the sand. "Broken your winning streak, seems like." He made a sound she hadn't heard a Vanari make before. She would later learn it was the equivalent of a reluctant laugh. They moved her to the medical bay beneath the arena. Kale followed without asking permission and without being stopped. The conclave staff apparently found the situation as unprecedented as everyone else and defaulted to simply letting it happen. They set her arm. She didn't make a sound. Kale watched her not make a sound with an expression that had moved decisively into something she could only call respect. "You are in significant pain," he said. "Yes. And you are not showing it. Showing it doesn't help." He was quiet again, longer this time. "Then, my people believe that how a warrior behaves in the moment after victory reveals more than the victory itself." "What does sitting in a medical bay with a broken arm reveal?" "That you fought for something larger than yourself," he said. "And that you would do it again tomorrow." She closed her eyes. The bone knit compound they'd administered was making her head swim. "Tomorrow I'm sleeping," she said. "Day after that, maybe." When she woke up 5 hours later, groggy, arm encased in a regeneration splint, Kale Veyron was still there. He was sitting against the wall, his broken blade laid across his knees, and he was studying it with the focused attention of someone trying to understand something important. He looked up when she stirred. "You stayed," she said. "You stayed beside me through the yield," he said. "You did not walk away while I processed defeat. That is not a small thing among my people." Mara thought about that. She hadn't done it for strategy. She'd done it because walking away from someone kneeling in the sand with a broken weapon had just felt wrong. What happens now? She asked. With the Conclave's decision. Humanity keeps its colonies, he said. The match was legitimate. The ruling holds. He paused. What happens now with us, that is a different question. She looked at the shattered blade in his hands. 300 years unbroken. One human woman with a plan that was objectively insane. I think, she said slowly, that might be worth figuring out. Kale Veyron looked at her for a long moment. Then he set the broken blade aside, carefully, deliberately, like a door being closed on one chapter, and nodded. Yes, he said. I think it might. 47 matches. 3 centuries. She broke the blade. Then she stayed. That's humanity for you.